Hello, and welcome to Chapter 4, Analyzing Work and Designing Jobs. This chapter discusses those two processes, and in doing so, it lays out some considerations that go into making informed decisions about how to create and link jobs. So it begins with a look at the big picture issues related to analyzing workflow and org structure. And then the discussion in this chapter turns into some more specific issues about analyzing and designing jobs. So traditionally, job analysis has looked at how we study existing jobs to make decisions such as who are we going to employ, who are we going to train, how are we going to compensate, etc. Whereas job design has emphasized making the jobs more efficient or more motivating. But we're going to see how these two things could be interrelated. Let's talk about workflow, or workflow analysis or design. When we think about workflow in organizations, is the process in which managers are analyzing tasks needed to produce a product or a service. Um, Service could be, we're an accounting firm and we have to do audits or taxes. We are a marketing firm. We are producing business proposals, more marketing campaigns. We are a manufacturing firm. We're producing nuts and bolts. So analyzing the tasks and starting to get those outputs is important. What we also looked in workflow is which of those tasks are assigned to specific jobs and positions. Just a key distinction between what a job is. So, job is a set of related duties. For example, um, an instructor in management, and then a position. It could be a set of duties performed by one person. So, in larger schools, there may be multiple positions of instructors that teach management. This college right now, there's one, but or just maybe a couple. Um, but that is sort of the distinction. You can have a job which is salesperson and then multiple positions. So typically, when you are applying to a job, actually you're applying to a position because there may be multiple positions for that particular job. So continuing with workflow organizations, there's kind of three components in there. The outputs, which is going to be the products of work unit, tangible and tangible. Tangibles could be an actual, nuts and bolts, and tangible could be some services. The processes that the people would need to engage so that those uh, outputs are produced, and a series of inputs. And inputs could be raw, such as material and information, could be some equipment, HR, and resources, which are the knowledge, skills, and abilities, which come up again later in this slide deck. Something that we have in the textbook, which is important to remember, is this workflow kind of summarizes how we come up with an output, starting from if we want to work backwards. If we want an output, I need to then decide or figure out what kind of activities it is that I need to get that output, and then what kind of components are needed so that I can do those activities. So next, we're going to talk about job analysis, and then we're going to follow it by job design. So, what is job analysis? In short, is how we get information, detailed information about jobs. It includes two kind of components: job descriptions and job specifications. So, why is it important? Let's think about how if our organization wants to achieve really high quality performance, they need to understand how to match the job requirements to the people. And it's so the job analysis become this foundational component so that we have enough information so that we can hire the right people and have good staffing. Um, if we hire the right people and we know they have the right skills, then we can train them properly. They will perform well, and we have solid performance appraisals and so many other activities in the HR world. So um, there's a lot of reasons why job analysis is important. There are legal reasons, and there's also, like I mentioned earlier, is the building block of most HRM functions. And one component that is really helpful is when we're trying to do work redesign. And this happens a lot in organizations that go through maybe mergers and acquisitions, or they're just growing and they need to like kind of break up jobs into other jobs. Maybe jobs are being merged with the advent of AI. I'm wondering, how many of those tasks that were maybe very intensive, intensive, now they could be done much more quickly. So then jobs need to be reviewed. So we need it, we use, like I said, job analysis for HR planning, for selection, training, performance appraisal, career planning, and job evaluation. Job descriptions is kind of first components, and you're probably very familiar with this. Anytime you look at a posting for a job that you're trying to apply, it will have the activities of, the list of TDRs, we call it in HR, tasks, duties, and responsibilities that a job entails. TDRs tend to be observable actions, so their behaviors. Um, and then when an organization creates a new job, they should prepare a job description. And more importantly, it should be reviewed periodically. That doesn't happen sometimes. So key components of a job description, a job title, um, some brief description of your TDRs, and a list of some essential duties with detailed specifications. So, kind of to wrap up this slide with job description, um, I always challenge the students when you're looking for a job to review the job description very carefully, because it's the foundation of many things, including your performance appraisal. You will be evaluated based on that description. When we get to the performance chapter, we'll discuss what happens when you do stuff that is not in your job description. How do you get evaluated? Or vice versa. Maybe there's stuff in your job description that you just never did. And why is that? Um, this will happen a lot. That's why a careful review of the job description is important. And it's your job, so you own this. So you need to feel empowered to say, I don't recall this being a duty in my job description, or vice versa. There were some duties in there that I don't seem to be performing. So can you please clarify? Anyway, moving on from job descriptions, we go into job specifications. Now, these are also listed typically in a job description, an application. They're sort of like mixed with everything else. Sometimes it's kind of hard for you to kind of pull out which one is which. But the job specifications, they tend to focus on activities. I'm sorry, job description are the activities, like the tasks, duties, and responsibilities. But a job specification looks at the qualities of the person performing the job. And the textbook talks about KSAOs. So K, which is the knowledge, S, which is the skill, our skills, A for abilities, and O for other characteristics. So sometimes, a job will require you to have, a college degree in certain area. Maybe that's the knowledge. Maybe they will require you to have critical thinking, which is a skill, communication skills, or being able to work on PowerPoints, or use Tableau. Um, some jobs require some licensing. If you want to go for in a finance or accounting world, you may need certifications there. And they may say like you need to work towards that if you want to get promoted for the next position. So um, why are these important? Because they are the basis of ensuring that we're being very fair as we move into the next two processes, which are interviews and selection. They should be focused on KSAOs, specifically skills. Now, when you think about job specifications, you also need to thinking about your resume because your resume is what lists all this information. And we haven't talked about this yet, but when we get to that selection process area, we need to think about a job description lists all the skills. So, do you have those skills listed in your resume? I mean, you may have them, but are they very clear to the employer? Um, okay, so we are now going to move on to the next section, and the next section is job design. So the nature of job design is sort of changing. It really includes how work is performed, and more importantly, like which tasks are required. Um, when we think about job design, we're trying to think about how can we make a job more efficient. Um, And although we just talked about analysis on how it's important that we understand existing jobs and how organizations also need to plan for new jobs and periodically consider revising the existing jobs. So, job design is this process, how we are looking at what's being done, who's performing the tasks, and then thinking about could these be done better? Um, So for this to work, obviously, for job design to work, we need to have, for it to be effective, we need to have a really good understanding of the job that is being performed through job analysis and workflow analysis. So job design kind of comes kind of later. Um, and one thing that you'll probably see nowadays is that as organizations are changing constantly, job design or job redesign is constantly happening. So the textbook goes into several approaches to job design. We are going to be focusing in this class mainly on the design for motivation. Um, However, and I don't want to put all the other ones down, there's also design for efficiency, which is important. And we're going to look at that just very briefly. When we try to design efficient jobs, most cases we think of manufacturing jobs, perhaps assembly lines. How can we benefit from maybe lower costs, greater output per worker, and then maybe less fatigue? Think about your simulation that you're working on, that kind of scenario. So, industrial engineering provides some measurable, practical benefits um, i- in terms of how can we make something more efficient. However, if we just focus on efficiency alone, we can create jobs that are just maybe too simple and very repetitive, and workers will get bored. So when we think about designing efficient jobs, we also need to think about how we can use different approaches so that it's better. And the next approach is designing jobs that motivate, which is the one we're just going to spend a little time here. Designing jobs that motivate, you may recall this from an OB class, and this is the kind of model that we use to figure out how to um, affect performance and commitment. Now, we're focusing here on jobs that motivate. And so the key component in this section is going to be the job characteristics model, which is developed by Richard Hackman and Greg Goldman. But before we get there, let's just look at maybe how this came to be. So designing jobs that motivate, we're taking some of the model away, and now we're looking at maybe some small, some just two components. Motivate, we'll keep motivation, and then just keep satisfaction as well. So here we're looking at how if as employee is satisfied, will be more motivated, therefore will perform better. Um, as a reminder, the job satisfaction model that we learned in OB focused on a couple of big models, the value percept theory, as well as the job characteristics theory. So that model is the one that this textbook goes into a little more detail. So we saw it in OBE, we're seeing it again. Um, and the VISLF model, if we want to call it like that, it talks about task variety, task identity, task significance, task autonomy, and task feedback. All tasks is there. So the task is kind of left out in there. And how when you have jobs that have all of those components, it will lead to satisfaction with the work itself. You like your job basically, and therefore you'll be happier, more satisfied, and if you're more satisfied, then you're more motivated, and if you're more motivated, you will do your job better. So eh, not too dissimilar from what we saw in OBE. Here now we're adding the motivation component after satisfaction. So important for you to remember this model, just very important. This is how they design jobs that motivate. When we think of job design, we also think about different types of things that we can do with job design. Concepts such as job enlargement, where we are trying to do, more tasks. So, so if you may be having too many repetitive tasks, I just throw something else in there so that it's not as repetitive and is more interesting. Um, and we also think of job extension. An extension is basically when we are enlarging jobs, and sounds like the previous one, but here what we're doing is we are combining lots of simple jobs to form a bigger job. So the big difference between enlargement and extension is enlargement is I'm just going to give you uh, some of the tasks that are not as repetitive and they're more interesting. In extension, I'm just giving you more simple tasks. Um, and then finally, job rotation, which is kind of easier to understand, is maybe you're in a situation, and I'm thinking here, let's think, I don't know, assembly line. So you are in the part where you're, I don't know, kind of putting packages in a box, and then someone else does the closing and someone else puts the label, and here you kind of keep rotating every week or every month so that you're not bored. um, Job extension maybe could be kind of doing all those processes together. I mean, they're simple jobs, right? But then I'm just doing multiple tasks, and therefore I'm having more variety of tasks. I should be more motivated. um, Then there's a couple others, and then we're kind of nearing the end. Job enrichment. And then enrichment has to do with empowering people so they can make decisions. Um, this also comes from a different theory, and where people find their jobs more meaningful when they feel they have some autonomy over it, perhaps. So that's what job enrichment is about. And you may see this happening a lot when you have entry level positions. And then if the tasks maybe are not super high risk, you can have those entry level position jobs have some level of decision making. And I don't know, think of telemarketers or think of like customer service people on the phone. You call them, you want a refund. They don't have to talk to a supervisor. Maybe they can just go ahead and give you that themselves. And then the last, I guess, component about job design that is worth noting is the self-management, managing work teams. Um, and it's sort of they're together because job enrichment is about one person making decisions about their jobs, whereas a self-managed team, they kind of make decisions as a team, so they try to become more productive, and then the employees will be more satisfied. Why? Because there's more autonomy, there's more skill variety, there's more task identity as a team. Maybe they see all the components going from the beginning to the end, which is what task identity is about. So, um, I think this about wraps it up. Although maybe I'll just finish by saying that also some things that we can do from a job perspective that will motivate is some flexible work schedule. Um, Flex time, it's super important for from many perspectives. But I think nowadays, when you think about flexible work schedules, you could also think about remote schedules, remote work. Um, we also may think about, compressed work weeks, which or just fewer hours, and then telework, which is the remote component. So this now wraps up chapter 4. So thank you.